So here's the thing. So when I thought about it,
Mhm.
and I thought about, okay, what could they do that would, one, impact the most amount of players that play this game, and two, provide content that continuously would provide the most amount of players rewards within their gameplay, right?
And
That's
progression, right? Not
and
necessarily
progression.
just rewards, but progression, right?
Progression means incremental rewards through
Increment, yeah,
gameplay.
yeah. Exactly,
That's
yeah.
what that's what that's what I mean. Um,
Okay.
and so we've lived through, a lot of us here have lived through almost everything, minus maybe the combat update, uh, that's on this list already in some way or shape or form, right? We've lived through it. An example would be they're going to give us docks. Sounds amazing. It's going to be fun. Before, you could substitute docks with like bridges. They're going to give
Yep.
us bridges. And that was going to allow us to, they hope that every update, what it does is it allow us to extend our enjoyment of this game and keep people in the game longer.
Yep. Yep.
Right, to keep more of the players that leave, to have them stay and be like, oh, there's bridges now. Well, that's gonna make me play many different more months or years because there's bridges
Right.
in. We were in the game with construction items, so they introduced uh, all like so many different types of wall types, slate and pottery and
Yeah.
all these things.
Just adding
We know
multi-story was
what
another one of those things that added
adding
so much more
multi-story.
play. Yeah.
We know what it felt like when they added that. We also know how long it kept our attention for after they
Yep.
did that.
And it still keeps our
But
attention for sure. Yeah.
there's some things that were very impactful, like multi-story.
Yeah.
There were other things that were not so impactful to you. Maybe multi-story wasn't so impactful for your gameplay. Maybe it was. There's some things that are more impactful than others and that increase the amount of players that actually it impacts.
And it increases the time that you engage with the system, right? Like
Yeah,
before, when there was only a single story house, like it wouldn't take you nearly that long to finish building your house. But now that there's multi-story, there's so many different variations, and so there's so much more design potential, and so you spend a lot more time in the design phase of the house, and you spend a lot of time getting everything just right. And so yeah, it just
it
adds so
completely
much more.
changed the way that affected our gameplay in a daily way. And there's
Yeah.
other changes that come into the game and it didn't affect us very much or in a
Right.
roundabout way. Like
Right.
the fishing update. Like
Okay. Yeah.
the uh I mean there was other updates, lots of updates that
Yeah. We don't
affected
remember
some
them
player
because
base, huge amount,
yeah,
but didn't
maybe.
affect, let's say, us or affect other players. And it could
Right.
be a smaller player base. And so the goal
I'll
here
honestly
is really,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just about to say all the priest updates that they've been doing over the past maybe 3 or 4 years, like I don't feel like many of them have really impacted me. Even though I play a priest, right? Like they've done a lot of changes to the way priests work over the past little bit,
Yeah,
but in terms of how I engage with my priest, it very minorly affected the way I engage with priesting.
right. And so the devs are basically trying to be smart. I mean, you looked at all of the the amount of outcry from that like priesting change or any other change that happens, let's say with combat or something, and then you realize most of the player base didn't even understand what the heck that change was for the priests. It didn't affect
Right.
them. Like, and so they spent all this time like fixing this problem, trying to uh, stop exploits and do all this stuff, only to realize that the amount of gain or pleasure that people are getting out of this game for for doing that change, it's like next to nothing of the player base
Right.
itself. There are
Right.
players, and
Right.
if you're one of them, you would not agree with what I just said. It
Right.
affected you a lot.
Sure. But what
But
percentage of players are we
the
talking about here?
percentage of
Right.
players would be smaller, right? So the goal of a dev is when they're creating a new features, their hope is that it affects the majority of the player base, so that it increases their
The impact that
time in the
they have.
game and the impact it
Yeah.
has in a positive way, and it makes them want to play for longer periods of time. Like,
Mhm.
it increases their enjoyment of the game. And so I thought about this um, before. All of the things that I wanted in this game, or all the things, like, there's so many things that they've added to the game that we've wanted for years. There was time
Mhm.
where we're like,
Mhm.
wow, everything that we've asked for, they added to the
Yep.
game.
Yep.
Like,
Felt
this
like
game
that.
went from nothing to all of this stuff.
Right.
And
Totally.
so it's like, what next? We brought up this question a lot. What next? What is that
Mhm.
thing that they're gonna do that makes it so the vast majority of players, in the way that they play, would uh, give the most amount of enjoyment and provide the most amount of people some sort of progression, long-term progression that makes people stay and enjoy this game even more. And of
Mhm.
course, we've learned that the dev team uh, is doing combat, which to us like is great. We love combat. Everybody thinks that the game needs new combat. Unfortunately, combat's not exactly something that we do all the time. So how it
Mhm.
impacts our daily lives would probably be smaller than what we actually think. But
Yep.
where am I going with all this? Oh God. Okay, so
Okay, we
I
gotta wrap
thought of a
ourselves back
system,
around.
and we're gonna
Oh,
wrap up with this. Okay,
okay.
so there's a system that I thought of that I'm like extremely passionate about, and I'm gonna reveal it today and hope that everybody here understands. I can convey sort of what I mean because this system's all in my head. I'm not good
Yeah.
at writing it down. Let's get
And
going. And
by the way, just so you know, Brian has put a lot of thought into this thing. It's not just something like it's a whim. This is like just a fluffy idea. He's hashed this out quite deeply and assessed the impact it has on each player and
yeah, my
I'm
goal
kind of
isn't
excited
to
for him
try
to explain
to
this.
tell you guys uh, how everything works. What I'm trying to tell you guys is uh, to get a sense of how it would affect you.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get that sense across. Not every little detail of how it works, like the mechanics. That's boring. Um, so, what do we mostly do in this game? We mostly do kind of what we're doing now. You know? What are you? What is everybody doing in the game right now? If you're playing,
Right. Right. Now, if I had to venture to say, the majority of people, if you're actively playing this game, the majority of people are going to be doing one of a few things.
right?
You're
Definitely,
going
you're
to be doing,
farming.
right? You're going to be gathering.
Nice
So
guy.
this
You're
includes,
avoiding real life. What skill are you
yeah,
in that?
yeah. You're
Uh,
going to be gathering or you're going to be creating, right? One of those two, right? So people are farming. That's like gathering, maybe mining or chopping wood. And then the other thing you're doing is creating. You could be building, you could be making tools, you could be imping tools, you could be, right?
tailoring, farming, working on your cave, which means I'm assuming some sort of
Mining. Okay.
mining or building something or doing something in your cave that deals with I'm assuming support beams, that sort of
Okay.
thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Support
paving,
beams.
sort of that kind of thing. Uh,
Okay.
we're
Rippins
digging.
is exploring. Okay. Okay. So
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 this
what we want is a system that affects
you're exploring.
every single one of
Rippins.
those
Uh,
things,
yeah.
including
So this
exploring.
system will affect every single one of you guys. Like and provide continual progression and rewards almost indefinitely.
Almost.
Um, so, and this is a combination of something I've actually said before, but much more thought out.
Right. You fleshed it out.
Yeah,
You've been
this
talking about
will,
this idea for over a year, I'm sure.
and I
Well over
feel
a
like
year.
this is what they would have to do, in my eyes anyway, um, to affect the most amount of people and to provide, like, I would just be so excited if they decide to do something like this. Uh,
Mm.
So this would be, and I don't know what to call it yet. Let's call it, it doesn't really matter, but like a mastery
Wh-
system.
Okay.
Something like this, okay? So I don't like
Okay.
the word that I was using before because that people hate
Okay.
that word
Yep.
for some reason.
I
So
see. I see.
it's
I
like
get.
it's
I
like a
see what you're saying.
mastery
Yeah.
system. So imagine
Okay.
I am a let's just break this down into a very, very small chunk. So imagine you are a blacksmith, because
Yep.
that's a very common one.
Or
And
farmer,
you,
or whatever it is. Fit
whatever, it's like
whatever
one of
you
the
are in
professions, not
one of the
one of the
professions.
gatherers.
Yeah.
Let's do one of the professions, for example.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
and so imagine you're a farmer and farmer. Imagine you're
A blacksmith.
a blacksmith and you are blacksmithing up. Like right now, we have a system that just goes up to uh, what 0 to 100, 1 to 100,
Yep.
something like that.
Yeah.
I'm saying this wrong, aren't I? So imagine every single item in this game, every single item in this game could be, uh, what's the word? You could,
Okay. Okay.
as a
Let's
master
back.
in blacksmithing.
Okay. Let's back up a little bit. What you're trying to do is add some progression to the blacksmithing. So imagine as you are leveling up your blacksmithing, you get to a certain point in that where you become a master at something. Like you unlock some ability, and that could happen at incremental points along the leveling process. Like at level 30, for example, could be the first tier where you sort of like you've gone through the beginning parts of blacksmithing and you've come out the other side. Now you're able to make, maybe 40 quality items or whatever. And because you've been working so hard on this, you get an additional perk. Okay, so why don't you describe that part?
So the perk would be this. So you've done a number of blacksmithing endeavor. You're kind of proficient in it. So you're able to now analyze a blacksmithing item
Mm.
and discover a way that you can make that item better.
Okay, so
So
I would take a
let's
pickaxe, let's
just
say.
doesn't even matter what the item is. Let's look at
Okay,
pickaxe. So let's say
okay,
you are a guy, you've gotten to level 30 or something, and you can now build, let's say, some sort of workbench of some kind that,
okay,
like a blacksmith workbench. And then on that blacksmith workbench, you can take a pickaxe and you can be like, I want to
yeah,
discover a way that I can make this pickaxe better. So you start this process of discovery of how you can make this better. And during that process, you can potentially unlock discovery of one way that you can make this pickaxe better.
okay. So
Okay.
what
And
would be an
I
example of a
haven't
way that you
explained the
could?
process, but
Okay,
yeah, what would be
we'll
an
come back. We'll
example
come back to that. Yeah.
of how what you could do? Like the point of this would be that there would be like many, many useful ways that you can make this pickaxe better, and you want to use them all, but you have to pick one. So, an example could be make the pickaxe be able to, like, let's say, unlock some traditional ones that everybody would be thinking would be like increase the lowest quality that you can pickaxe, raise that by a little bit
Right.
of
The
ore.
lowest quality of the ore that would come out. Okay.
Sure, that's one. But then there's another one. Let's say reduces the amount of actions you would have to use to tunnel into a mine by a very
Okay.
small amount.
Okay. Or here's another one. Every time you mine, there's a chance at producing two ores instead of one.
Sure. How about the reduction? You can have the reduction in timer. Sure, like a
Okay. Yeah.
slight reduction of timer.
Slight reduction of timer.
Hitting
Okay.
like rock only. And then another one that has a slight reduction in timer of hitting gold
Iron.
or a slight
Okay.
reduction of timer of iron. You'd have to choose
Okay.
which one, like you would discover one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
that you've
Okay.
discovered, let's say you've discovered like five of them, you
Okay.
discovered the ability to like the reduction of timer would be like the reduction of timer while doing something with that pickaxe,
While tunneling into
while
the
tunneling
while
into the
doing
mine,
the initial tunnel. Yeah.
while hitting iron.
Okay.
while doing this, right? So you would have to discover
Yeah.
all of them. And you have this big, as you discover more, now you have the ability to
To
apply that knowledge and put it into a pickaxe that you create, that you can master that pickaxe by a
okay.
system that you could do something like this, where it would require you to create a separate item on this bench that requires a specific amount of tools to create like an item that you can then attach onto that pickaxe. A
Okay,
disposable item.
so I pick what I make a pickaxe and this pickaxe is gonna be the one that I have to use on iron, for example. So I'm gonna imbue it with the abilities that might help it when mining iron, and that'll be my iron pickaxe that I put on my shelf. And
So at level
then I
30, yeah,
created,
you could create one that
yeah,
helps with iron, but a
right.
specific way, like helps with the reduction in timer of iron, or helps with
Okay. Okay.
the quality of item, or helps with like getting more
And I
iron
almost feel
per.
like I'm not sure if we even need to go as far as splitting it up for the individual ores, right? Like we can maybe even dial that back a step and just say when, like maybe just dividing it between rock and the others, for example.
Maybe I
Right?
wouldn't see a reason why not to
Yeah,
separating the
maybe.
ores.
Right, because your idea is that there's going to be so many of these things that when you're doing the discovery process, the actual discovery process matters because you'll be granted one of them, and maybe that one is like just you increase your timer on gold, for example, and that's like, ugh, like okay, how
You
often am
could
I going to
even
go
do
on gold?
this, like just with that. I mean, this is just an example on just one item, but you could just do like there's a general pool of pickaxes, or pickaxe abilities that you can unlock, discover,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the low level ones are like individual to
Oh,
a
okay,
specific thing. And then as you get higher level, the more advanced blacksmith could combine like that
right.
into like
Like
one, or
like
into
have it on all metals,
less.
for example. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And there's
Interesting.
different
Okay.
tiers of these benefits that you would get,
I like it. I like
right? So
it.
you could have
Okay.
like general uh abilities that you can unlock, and then more like rare ones, and then rarer ones, and then higher level ones, and that sort of thing. You
Right.
become a master
Right.
at your craft. You're
Right.
discovering how to become a master at that pickaxe.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Now you're a master at this pickaxe, but you're not a master at creating any other item. Now you have to learn how to become a master at that item. You have to discover abilities to unlock
To unlock
for
for,
those
let's say,
items,
hammer
or a
now, and then you have
hammer.
another set of abilities for sickles and things like this.
And
Okay.
so your character is getting these discoveries and learning how to make a better item as you go during this discovery process. Uh, So what I would say is, say as you level up, so let's say it could be any level. So at level 30, it could be like the first one where you can make the item better. You can start discovering like the small ones, and then you can
Apply
discover how
them
to
to the
yeah, how to apply it to a pickaxe, and then you apply it. You create the item, you apply it to the pickaxe, and that's it. When you get to like
okay.
level 50, for example, now you can do it a second time. So you
Right.
can
So
have like two slots, two things,
two things
ways
that you add.
that you can master and improve twice.
Okay. So like for example, you
As
can decide I want to make this go faster on iron and also
and maybe
increase the quality at the lowest increase the minimum quality it comes out of, and I have both of those in play. Or maybe you can even stack them so you can put two that increase the minimum quality, and so it increases the minimum quality just a little bit more.
sure,
Is
it
that what
would
you're
have to be
saying?
your choice. But
Okay,
the
so you
thing is, all
choose.
of these benefits would have to be like you would want all of these benefits, but you can't have all these benefits. You would have to
Right.
pick and choose, what do I want my pickaxe to be?
Right. And Pink Street is bringing up a point. Like, how would you balance benefits to make sure that they're not OP enough to it feel like you have to grind it versus not like good enough to entice people to actually do it in the first place? Um, that's definitely a balance that would have to be struck at some point, and it has to do with the amount of
It,
benefit you get. And but like if you even imagine a 1% benefit, and then that could be stacked with another 1% benefit and another 1%. So like over time, when you get higher levels, eventually you can stack 5% or whatever, and that's like decent enough
So the
benefit.
reason why ruins didn't work is because they gave too much benefit for very
Too much benefit.
little. Uh,
Right.
it was almost like too much reward for very little progression. You
Like
don't have to
one
do
item,
much to
10%
get
benefit.
all of that
It's
benefit. It
like
shouldn't have been that way.
right, it
They
shouldn't
did
have
it.
been
They
that
basically
way.
did it wrong. Like they made
Yeah.
it OP, and they didn't think
Yeah.
about that. Um,
Yeah. And
and
now they're gonna be taking
runes
that
have other
back at some
problems,
point,
but
right? Because they're
yeah,
like what we're describing is a system that kinda is similar to the Ruin system, except for it is tied into some
not
kind of progression that is related to your skills and your
yeah, it's not
character
really,
rather
but
than oh, right. But I mean to say that it's similar in the sense that you apply something to an item to enhance it, right? Like it's in that same vein. However, this system is tied directly to your character's ability and skill and progression. So it's something that you're working towards compared to the ruins where you can just buy a ruin off of the merchant. And the way that those ruins were gotten by were just by participating in rifts,
yeah.
right?
And
And
now,
there's not
let's say
really that much progression.
you're leveling up your skill, and at level 70, for example, you could like unlock the next time where you can put something on that item again. So you can have now up to, like, let's say, three kind of
Yeah, items. Yeah.
abilities that you can attach to it, and then maybe at level 90 you could do it again, and you're basically progressing your skill, and then you have the ability to to discover the item on different ways that you can advance, or
Right.
different ways that you can uh, increase its
Yeah.
functionality, that
So the
item,
higher
and
the
then
skill,
yeah, the
the
higher
higher
your
that your
skill
skill is, the
and the
better
higher
the
that you make the
enhancements
item.
become. So the higher your skill, the better the enhancements that you discover become. But also,
Yeah,
you also have the ability of putting on more of those enhancements to each item. What I really like about this system is that it it creates this situation where you will have to create certain tools that have certain functionality, right? Like it kind of diversifies the tool set that you will have. Like when you start imagining how this is going to be incorporated in other things in other areas of the game, not just pickaxes, but let's say to your carts, for example.
let's yeah,
You
let's use that as an example.
okay,
Let's just theorize a couple benefits that you could discover if you were a master fine carpentrist, or
right?
whatever you want to call it. Uh, okay, so you have a cart. So
Yeah,
imagine you discover the ability to uh, allow that cart to traverse slightly higher slopes.
okay. I would
How
love to
about
have that.
if you allow the cart to be able to discover, oh my
Oh,
god,
Deathwin,
Deathwind,
thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Deathwin, for the 5 gifted subs.
And everybody here, thank Deathwind, Tuxie,
Yeah,
Gallic
Gallic.
Tiki, Donut Kebab, Ashen Dark, and the Parser. You
For
now
sure.
have a tier 1 sub thanks to Deathwind.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now I want to keep going, but I'm about to hear the sound again. I'm thinking, thank you. Okay, are we
I don't want
done?
to lose our train.
So,
I don't think so. Are we? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Oh no, we're not. No, here it is. Yeah. so so we're about to talk about just brainstorming. Like this is just like what the devs would have to do would be go through each and every item in this game and sort of do this exercise with it. So we're about to go through it with carts. Oh,
So
the
imagine
sounds aren't popping up on stream. Oh, see, this is the thing. Like now I'm hearing those sounds, so I hear the alerts, but they're not popping up on stream.
that's weird. Yeah, we're hearing the sounds. Oh, I know why you're not hearing the sounds. Sorry, guys.
Uh, okay.
You haven't been hearing any of the sounds. That was my fault. Um, so, so one of them could be you discover the
Okay.
ability to have carts traverse higher slopes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd really
How
like
about you
that. Yeah.
discover the ability to have the cart contain more volume in it?
Okay. Yeah, I would want that one
Discover the
too.
ability to allow you to hold more items in it,
Okay. Like more than 100?
more than 100.
Okay, interesting.
or have the
Interesting.
ability to allow specifically more crates in it or large
I
crates in
mean,
it.
the more than 100 might not be one I put on a cart, but I would love that on like a backpack or a satchel or something,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Unlock the ability to be able to hitch a horse to the back of the cart to lead it.
Okay. To lead it. Okay, interesting. So instead of leading it myself, I can hitch it to the back of the cart to lead it. Okay. I might do that if I'm collecting animals, right? Like I could lead four plus have another one hitched on the
Yeah.
back of my cart. Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting.
How about you discover the ability to uh, make it so the cart is slightly less weight to when a horse drags it, so the horse can drag it a little bit faster, let's say uphill.
Oh, okay.
Up
Uphill.
a
Okay.
hill.
So increase the speed at which you go up a hill. Interesting.
Or
Yeah.
have it increase the speed, just the general speed of it when it's going
The overall
not
speed.
uphill.
Okay. I
And
mean, those
now
would
we've
have to be
just laid
balanced
out,
somewhat. Those would have to be balanced somewhat so that the one that gets faster uphill actually does a lot more than the straight speed buff one would, right?
sure, I mean, these are incremental changes, right?
Yeah,
So
incremental, right? Yeah, incremental. Yeah.
I know we're not talking about 10%, like we're talking about incremental. You discover the ability to uh, make it a little bit
Like
better. Now, imagine
like
you
it could
just
be okay.
all of these things, you have to now pick one. You're level 30. You
You have to pick
discovered,
one.
let's say you discovered 5 or 6 of these, and
Yeah.
now you're like, okay, what do I put in my cart? Well, you want them all on your cart, but you can't have them all on your cart. You have to choose one and put it on your
Right.
cart. And
Mm,
then maybe you decide, okay, maybe I need 2 carts. Maybe I need a cart that does this and a cart that does that. And then at level 50, now all of a sudden you can apply 2 of those to a cart. And maybe
okay.
even one of them
You,
could be applied twice to your cart if you want.
right, so you can stack one and make it go doubly fast compared to the others, or hold double, like get double of that volume
Yeah, and
increase,
this
for example. Yeah.
cart you can sell. It's an item in the game. You've
Uh-huh.
created it, your mastery skill. You've created a very specific type of cart, whatever it is, and you can sell
Right.
that cart because you're a master and you discovered that ability to do that to your cart. And not everybody discovers the same things. This is just an exercise on carts.
Right.
Like,
Right. Like
imagine the
we can
possibility.
right. You pick any item in the game. Let's do it one more. Let's do one more because just to give you the sense that this is not just like those big items, right? Like we pick two commonly used items, right? So let's pick an item that's like that's a particular profession, right? Builds this item. Um, can you think of a good one, a good example that's not such a main one, but it's also not a minor one either?
Could be anything, even if it's like, I was
Yeah.
telling it, like, imagine, uh, imagine, let's just do
Yeah,
one more.
grindstones.
I mean, we
Okay, yeah.
can do
Yeah,
all
okay.
of them. Grindstones are very similar to like what we were. A lot of these things can apply to, let's say, grindstones with like
Okay.
that's more of like a harvesting sort of thing where you're using an
It,
item and you're
it's a
grinding it
create it's
into
a
a
creation. It's a
creation
creation.
item. So
Right. Yeah.
a lot of the creation item benefits would go to
Increase
that.
minimum quality and increase maximum quality, increase speed at which it goes,
Yeah.
increase, like yeah, these sorts of things. But
Dyes,
let's
that
do a
would be
compass.
great.
Okay,
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
compass. Compass, I
Let's
think,
do
is
a
very
compass.
similar too, because
Okay.
compasses you can decide, okay, a main one could be how long until uh you're allowed to read that compass.
Okay, so
Improve,
how long for it to settle?
yeah. And how
Okay.
about how long until it desettles after you move?
After you start walking. Yeah, yeah. So like already it's in the situation where if you have a high quality compass, you can after it's settled, you can walk around for a whole bunch and it'll stay settled and it could just affect like one of the event things could affect that. Um What else? I wonder if they could like I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but they could make it so that compasses aren't so perfect as they are now. They sort of like wobble like real compasses do. You know, like I don't know if you've ever used a really crappy compass, but like they're not they don't like
Actually,
perfectly
Pink
tell you
Street,
exactly the
yeah.
direction that they
A
go. So maybe
compass
they can
actually has a profession. I don't know if
yes.
anybody knows what it is.
Yeah, does anybody know what the
Do you remember what
profession
it
of the
is?
compass is? I do remember what it is. It's such a
Yeah.
weird one. It's miscellaneous items.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
miscellaneous items. So you would have to get
Miscellaneous,
good at
yeah.
miscellaneous items, and then you'd have to take the compass, and then you would have to discover things that you could do with that compass.
Based on
Yeah,
that
just go through the
skill,
same
yeah.
process based on the
Yeah.
skills. Um, anyway, so this is just an idea, and they wouldn't even have to like think of every single item at the start or every single profession at the start. They could
Yeah.
go through a
They can
list
group
of
them
items,
in
figure out
categories.
different things that you could discover, and they could add more as you go, and we wouldn't even know because we would
Right.
have to discover them as we go along, and they wouldn't have to
Like
tell
one
us
one key
all of the
feature of
ones that
this
are in the
is
game.
one key feature of the system though is that let's say you decide, okay, we're gonna make one that just decreases action timer on gathering items, let's say. Let's group all gathering items. We're talking pickaxes, hatchets, rakes, da 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 da. Okay. And what's important is that they implement these things so that you discover them for specific tool types. So you discover the ability to make rakes have a faster action timer when tending, let's say. But that same one won't affect hammers, let's say, when you're improving on blacksmithing. Like you have to discover a separate one for hammers because the method of discovering these things is you take the item, like the hammer, and you go over to your workbench and you like discover, discover. And what you're going to discover is something that works on hammers specific,
Yeah,
right? Is
does that make sense so
like I think
far? Um,
yeah.
let's do a very weird one, for example, just to theorize this. Imagine
Okay.
like a pavement. How about like a
Okay.
walkway?
Pavement. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a weird one.
That's a
Yeah.
weird one.
Yeah.
So imagine you discover the ability, like the one that everybody would say, you would
Yo-yo.
walk a bit faster on it.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. That one's an obvious one that we would want. Yes.
What else can you think?
Okay. So, um,
How about
maybe it.
horses can go
Okay. So yeah,
faster?
different things. Okay. So maybe carts can go. So you can have a separate one for carts, one for horses. You can also
Or
have. So your stamina drains less.
your stamina drains less as you walk across it.
Okay. Or here's one. Uh, you're on this pavement type. Your you know the 100% speed limit that you normally have.
Mm-hmm.
The 100% speed limit is slightly higher, so you can be carrying a little bit more and get the 100% speed limit.
Yes. Yeah. Or like you weigh less, or the effects of you being weighed would affect less while you walk on it.
Or like you can carry more. Yeah,
You can carry
it's not
more,
that it's
essentially.
not that you weigh less, but you can carry more and still have the
Not that you
100%
weigh
speed
less, but the
bonus.
effects of the weight
Yeah, the
affect you
effect of the
less.
weight.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Stuff
Okay,
like
yeah.
this. And then you'd have to decide which one matters to me more in which situations. Because all of them would be really cool to have. But you can only choose one, or you can only choose two, depending on how high your pavement skill is.
That one has a good idea. Would the act of discovering destroy the item? I think
Sure.
that would be a good thing because this game
I
does
didn't
need more
actually talk
sinks.
about how to discover yet. So this is a good
Right,
segue
right.
because you're saying,
Okay. How to
how
discover?
would
Yes.
you discover an item? And so the way that I had envisioned it is so imagine you sit down at your bench and you put whatever item there, or you bring an item over and you're discovering an item. Imagine that yeah, we're gonna have to
Yeah, at some point
shut
soon
down
we're gonna
soon.
have to shut down. Yeah.
So there's a system, like a cool system that I've been thinking of that's similar to a system that I've known from a different game. So imagine you have a specific amount of points, like this, whatever you want to call them, mastery points, discovery points, and uh, you sit down to discover like a new way mastery of imping or improving some item, and you're sitting down, and let's say it's 100 points to get to the end to discover something. Okay, so you sit down and you you start an action which raises the points, gets you closer to the discovery process, and then you
Right.
click again to get closer to the discovery process, and you're using
Yeah.
your points as you're getting further. But then there's like another gauge of like the type of
How much quality it is?
no, the type of the discovery type of discovery that you can make. So let's say
Okay. The
at the
first
very
type would be
bottom you
like
can only discover like the weakest ones or the
the
worst
tier
ones,
one, the
the
tier
tier
one
ones.
ones. Okay.
But if you want to
Yeah.
improve, you got to use your points to increase the chance of a better type or more rare type of discovery.
Okay.
Okay, so you're using
Okay.
your points to get a better type of discovery, but because you're using your points, you might not make it to the end of your discovery. So you have to
Okay.
balance
I
that.
see.
How much do I want to raise for the chance at a better discovery? Will I still make it to the end of this discovery progression?
So you kind of have
And
to
then
balance your resources.
so you click a button and it starts the process of discovery, and depending on how much success you make, it jumps your discovery up a little bit towards your discovery. And then you're like, okay, I want to now maybe improve the chance at a better discovery. So you put points into that, and that's going up, and that's going up.
Interesting. Okay.
And then
And maybe as your skill goes up in that profession, that gives you either more points or each time you are successful, more progress on each one of those bars or whatever.
yeah, and then they could throw like wrenches in there where like you're discovering the item and then something goes wrong and you have to use points to repair whatever you damaged. And you're trying to
So
not run out of points before you get to the end of the discovery process.
so Charger
This
here is saying that sounds more like a grind, but here's the thing: this whole process isn't going to take that long. It's not like you have to do this over and over again. It's like you do this once, and you
this whole process and what we're
hopefully,
saying
yeah,
may last like a couple
a
minutes,
minute or two, yeah,
maybe.
a couple minutes, yeah, and
But
then at the end of it, you get the permanent ability for your character to create or to imbue that ability to that enhancement to
to
the
that type
item
of
from then on.
item.
Yeah. And as your skill gets higher, that process becomes easier to do, just like everything else in this game.
All we're saying, so all of this together, all that would mean is that you continuously will be discovering new rewards to place onto an item. You would get the variety of all of these items so that it's not more. Everything's a grind in this game, but what
Right.
this would do is make it so you're incrementally getting rewarded for your efforts
Right.
constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that there's just so much that you can get, that you can earn, and continuously
that you're
building up your
motivated.
repertoire of mastery of these items in the profession that you love. Then you have the variety in those specific items. People will learn they might want a specific kind of item, an item with a specific kind of mastery attached to it, a specific type of enhancement to it. Other people might want different enhancements to it. Other people might want like whatever, and it's a one-time thing. You apply the enhancement to the item. That item cannot change its mastery or its change. Or if you were to change it, you would have to. It would be some drastic thing of doing that. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just
No.
the system.
Just back to the comment about grinding. It's like we said this earlier in this episode in this show is that like grinding is only what you call it when you feel like you're not really like you're doing it for the sake of doing it, and you just have to do it over and over and over again, and like it starts feeling grindy when the rewards aren't there. Like every game every game is considered a grind. Like, oh, what are we doing here? We're looking at a bunch of pixels, we're clicking a whole bunch of buttons. That's what every game is, right? And so the point of developing the game is to make it so that that process is rewarding and engaging and keeps you playing. Like, it keeps you wanting to do the quote unquote grind because there's a benefit at the end of that grind that you are really working yourself towards, right? And the more that you think about that benefit, like the rewards and the progress, the progression through the quote unquote grind, and the more you implement, carrots and sticks along the way, then that just makes for a better experience, right?
And you got a good comment. I like it, Orpheus. Would you master a sail or a ship? So
Right.
one thing that I would say about that is it doesn't need to be applied to every single item in the game at the start. The
Right.
devs could pick a specific few items and then continue with a few more items. So if you were to choose, would I want it to be applied to a ship or would I want it to be applied to a sail? Your answer would basically determine that.
Like, let's start with ship, and then maybe
Yeah.
later think about sail.
Yeah, it's not a one and done system. So
but
it's
maybe it could be just something that applies to final products, like
we could
maybe,
start there. And if they
right? Just
could
start
figure
with,
out ways to do other things like semi-finished products that
components.
don't do anything or components,
Yeah.
sure. But that's
Like, we don't need seats, for example, like chairs or something, to have things at the start, unless later they come up with something that chairs do that would warrant it.
yeah. And it's just a worm way of trying to affect everybody in one fell swoop with a system that could change slightly the landscape of Worm that
I
I
love
would be
this
the most
idea.
excited about if they were
Yeah,
to do this.
I think that the main benefit of this is that it touches everybody. Like, any skill that you are working on right now, if you could just imagine it had something like this in it to sort of tack on to the regular improvement system, or the regular, like, how do I get higher quality stuff? Like, the current system in the game is just based on improvement. Improve your tools, and that's it. But if there's this extra little bit that allows you to, because your skill has progressed so far, it allows you to master that to a level that gives you something that you can discover and work towards collecting. It's almost like a collection, right? Because you're collecting all these little enhancements that you can be collecting here, and those are permanent to your character. So now your character, because of their knowledge, has that ability to imbue items with that particular attribute. And especially at first, everybody's going to be different, right? Not everybody's going to have all of them. So certain people will be better at creating a pickaxe that is geared towards skilling, and certain people will be better at making pickaxes that are better for creating those epic cave systems that you want to create, or one that's better at harvesting from the nodes, right? And
Imagine how that
just
would
the
spur the
variety is
economy.
endless. Mm, mm.
Imagine like some blacksmiths decide to choose to work on pickaxes, and another
Right,
blacksmith might choose to become a master at rakes.
right.
Those
Or tool,
two,
or just,
the one blacksmith
yeah,
can't enhance pickaxes because they didn't do the work involved, but the other one can do that. That blacksmith can make like the best rakes, but the other blacksmith can't make the best rakes. They are a master at making pickaxes, so it
right,
chooses what time do you want to spend to really become a master at at your craft. It gives you more uniqueness in one blacksmith over another blacksmith,
right.
and it gives uniqueness in the tools that we have within the economy. So now all of a sudden, a black pickaxe is not a pickaxe, another pickaxe is a pickaxe, right? You have
Right.
varieties
Spoon
of
and knife.
pickaxes. Yeah, and then imagine that you can have special spoon and knife masters if you really want to
Yeah.
take it that far eventually. I
Right.
would say that they'd want to stick at the beginning with specific items in this game
Yeah.
that they can develop properly and think of enhancements and get that out first, and then
Yeah.
think of all of the other cool little knickknacks that they could help with and make
Right.
this system more in depth.
Yeah. I mean, they're already
It would
talking about reworking the ruin system and the imbue system. Like they need that. This is just an opportunity to incorporate this into a larger picture sort of thing.
yeah, get enough variety so every single profession is affected by this, and every single person will definitely be affected or be impacted by a system like this, and
Mm.
all of us will be affected by it for a long period of
Long
time.
time. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the goal of anything that a dev would want to touch.
Right.
And that's why
In
I'm
fact,
uh,
like,
so
yeah,
passionate.
you're very passionate about this. So, I mean, the next step of this whole thing is like to get the message to the devs, I'd say. And for that, we kind of need to put this all down in writing. And we're not really great at that process. This is the reason why we're not really that active on the forums in terms like I read the forums, but like in terms of like writing on the forums, I always feel like I can't quite get it out the way that I want it to get out. So I just get stuck. There've been times where I've written like a massive post and then just deleted it because I don't like it. I just don't like the way it came out. Um, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm so
But
passionate about it. I know Brian's not passionate about it. I'm passionate about it. But no,
Brianna.
just I'm just kidding. Yeah, I would love to see a system like this. I feel like it's something that's they could do, they could focus on, and I feel like it would impact everybody and change the scope of what Worm's like. It will
Right.
make Worm uh, more attractive in the end, more depth, keep people
Right.
here
But
longer.
Pink Street, just even with the spoon thing, right? Like there are certain things that spoons work for. And it might be that you as a blacksmith have gotten to the point where you've already figured out how to do everything you wanted to do with pickaxes, and you've already figured out everything you want to do with hatchets and rakes and saws and things like that. And now you're at the point where, while you're mixing that stuff in the mixing bowl, like while you're doing your cooking stuff, like, maybe it would be nice to have a few things on that spoon because I'm doing a bunch of that stuff. So then you decide, okay, I'm going to take a spoon now and put it on the thing, and you can create the ability to make that spoon mix better, for example. It's like the depth, even though they're so like the spoon might sound so niche or whatever, like at least having that as an option gives the person the next thing to work towards if they so choose.